Welcome, friends, family. So excited to be here with you again today as we continue to travel down how to win friends and influence people. Do this, and you'll be welcome anywhere. Today is what we're going to be talking about. This comes out of How to Win Friends and Influence People. And what he's describing is do this, and you'll be welcome anywhere. Is when you begin to become genuinely interested in other people. When we do that, that is when we're going to be welcomed anywhere. And it would just make sense. He tells a story about the dog who comes up and he says, who's your best friend, man's best friend. He goes on to say a few things that they aren't, but the one that is, it is the dog, because he's always happy to see you, excited, has his tongue out, jumps on you when he comes and sees you.
Yep.
So, Casey, excited to be here with you today.
Yeah.
What was your thoughts on this chapter?
Well, it's actually the finishing portion of that thought is, the dog comes up, they're excited to see you, and they're not expecting anything in return. They're coming up, they're genuinely just excited for you to see you. And he talks in here about how the dog is the only animal that doesn't have to work, for its stuff. The chicken lays its eggs. The cow has to produce milk and so on and so forth. And, the dog's the only one that has to work. But then when I read that, I thought, well, you do have hunting dogs, but nonetheless, the concept here is that, a dog gives you that love without expecting anything in return.
Right.
And to be genuinely interested in other people, you got to do it without wanting anything out of it. So, Elijah, as we're going through this and reading through this book, there's some great concepts in this book, by the way. So if you're really trying to grow and get better at getting along with people, I don't know that I've ever been one to really get along with people in a lot of ways. I'm the one that wants to stand my ground and say, yeah, that's not right. Let me show you the real way. You may win arguments, but you don't really in the end, and we'll get to that later. But when you're thinking about being genuinely interested in people, I see this as something that, at least since I've been old enough to really pay attention, I feel like you've done very well. So is that something that comes natural to you, or what does it look like for you about being genuinely interested?
Question, Casey. For me, when I first got born again, August the 8th, 1998. And prior to that, I was interested in nobody but me. And I've seen where that road took me. In and out of jail, lost my license 3 times in 1 year. Cops impounded my vehicle. My girlfriend was dating my best friend. So genuinely interested only in me was like quicksand. And I didn't care about other people. I only cared about what was in it for me. So August 8th, 1998, I got born again. And I was so grateful that God cared about me. And, for the first time in my life, I felt valued. And if you really believe the gospel, then you believe that Jesus died on a cross for no sin of his, but for my sin. And in return, he took my place and gave me his righteousness. Man, if that don't make you feel valuable, that don't make you feel cared about, then your care is broken. And you're going to feel so less than what you really are. So when I realized, man, that what an unselfish act, that he cared that much, that he gave that much for me, it just became natural for me to know that that was what I was supposed to do for others. And so out of that heart, I began to learn how to become more genuinely interested in others. The trouble is I knew more about myself than I did anybody else. So I was more comfortable talking about myself than I was asking questions. And eventually, John Maxwell came into my life. At that time, I was beginning to be a youth pastor at Dole Methodist. There was a group of 8 kids that they'd asked me to be the youth pastor over. And I was still very cocky, very sure of myself, and thought, yeah, that'd be no problem. Until the first day I got in there, I'm like, oh, what do we do now? I got 8 kids in here. I'm leading, and I don't know what to do. And so we threw something together that evening, but I began to realize that I needed to be trained. And John Maxwell became that mentor to me. John Maxwell's become my friend through his books. And thanks to John, he just really kind of reprogrammed me to realize that that we're here to help other people, that we're here to serve, that we're here to help build other people. And in doing that, you got to really care about them. You got to really be interested in them. So that's kind of how I got to where I'm at today.
Yeah. So trained and educated.
Yes.
Through
Yeah.
through your own devices, and that's the only way any of us can grow is to get out and do that. And you know, I feel like there's maybe some people that do this naturally, but then again, we don't know what time they put into maybe reading some of those books and stuff too. So maybe they didn't do it naturally either. That's just what we've always experienced with them, right? So, a lot of thought to be going in there. But last time we met and talked about the previous chapter, there was a lot of talk about genuine in it, and now here we are again with another chapter that's talking about having a genuine interest in other people, and that's a part of our culture here, right? To be a team that genuinely cares,
yes,
and as well as delivers those great results,
right?
And I think really it's focusing in on that word, that genuine word. And what does that mean? What does genuine mean to you?
Genuine is a tough word for me because, I'm 48 years old and it's took a long time to really kind of discover who my soul is and who I am. My first half of my life was very destructive. Had a mother tell me every day, you're stupid, you're dumb, you never amount to anything. So very kind of broken early. And then again, August the 8th, 1998, I was 22 years old. God came into my life, man. He supernaturally changed me. And for the first time, I felt valued. It spoke over all of that. But still, to kind of find my soul, to find out who I was, man, it has been a long, hard journey. But genuine to me, when you see somebody who is genuine, they truly know who they are and they're authentic in who they are. I think people are attracted to that, whether they're saved, born again Christians, or people that are just pioneering in a band or whatever. You know what I mean? They're just who they are. And so when you can find people that are genuine in who they are, I think there's a level of respect that comes, right or wrong, right?
Yeah, yeah. Going through college and having experiences with other, a lot of different styles of people. College is a melting pot of, you know, backgrounds and influences and just a whole different culture. And every college, I'm sure, has its own kind of stigmas and stuff that come with it. I'm sure none of them are alike in a lot of ways. But that being said, going through college and experiencing that, I could remember seeing several people in my youth, we used to call them chameleons. And basically it was if they were hanging out with like the cowboys cap people, they were dressed up like cowboys and that's how they acted. And if they were out with the motorcycle people, they were out, dressed in, like a biker and speaking that kind of language. Or if they were out with the like the R&B, they were dressed out that way. Or, they just kind of they camouflage themselves to be with whoever,
right?
And you never really know. You're just like, well, who are you? But really, who are you? Because you've never been the same person. You just mold to whoever you're around. And in a lot of cases, I guess that could be a useful trait, right? Because you're taking an interest in somebody else's lifestyle or whatever else. But at the end of the day, just what you said, I don't really know who you are. You're not being genuine to yourself. You're not being true to yourself. So there was a lot of those. It was hard to really kind of get close with those kind of people.
Yeah. Authentic is the real deal, though. Genuine is real. And so our mission within the Elevate community is to deliver phenomenal 5-star service for every client every time. That is something that we mean. Like, we're authentic about it. We're really working towards that. So that ain't a put on. That ain't something that we're just saying and then, we're laughing, patting them on the back, and then when they're gone, like, can you believe that? That was so easy.
Well, I mean, it's you had to be true to what you say that you're going to do, right? You had to be genuine in that. I mean, it's just like, if a restaurant has a slogan of have it your way or something, and you go in there and try to customize an order or something, they said, no, we do it this way.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like, well, hold on, but you're saying this, but you're doing that.
Right.
so being genuine. Yeah.
And growing up, for a lot of people, I'm sure I'm not the only one. I mean, a handful were really blessed, I think, with good two-parent families and strong convictions and strong core values and good godly morals, or not good godly morals, but they were true to who they were.
Right.
I think that today's not the norm. I think that's the exception. And so, man, when you get around somebody that's authentic or genuine to who they are, it's neat to see those people. For a lot of people, I think that takes a lot of work to get there. And even maybe when you're in your 30s or 20s or 30s and you start realizing, okay, why do I want these things? My parents wanted them for me.
Right.
Do I really want them? Is this who I really am? So I think that we're going through a process as human beings, of trying to figure out who we are. And I think that's okay. When you see a younger group coming through, a lot of times when we're looking over resumes, we see a lot more what we would consider job hopping. But we look at that and think, okay, and you said it before, maybe that's a good thing. Maybe they were wanting to get where they fit instead of just accepting the first thing they got. So I think there's that going through that process of becoming authentic and genuine. But when you live for a mission or you live for a purpose or you live for a cause, I think you can become very authentic to that.
Yes, I agree 100%. So in this chapter, guys and gals that are listening, what this is talking about is talking about being genuinely interested in other people. And we took just a moment there to kind of discuss kind of what genuine kind of means to us and kind of how we interpret that word. And really it's just being unapologetically true, right? It's just you can tell when somebody says, "Oh, how's tennis going?" And then they can hear less about tennis. They're just asking you that because they know you play it. And then after they answer the question, they quit listening.
Yeah.
And you can feel it every time when somebody does something like
Big
that,
time,
or how's the real estate market? And then they just tune out, because they did it out of nicety, but they didn't do it out of
I get it all the time, man.
Yeah.
Now that we started a new company, how's Elevate? And I get excited and I start bubbling over and telling everybody, like, they just checked out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're not even listening.
Yeah.
The connection's gone. So they really didn't necessarily care. And I'm learning that that's probably my bad, that I'm too quick to kind of bite right there, where really I need to start asking them, everything's going great at Elevate. How is your family? How are things going right now with you? To just kind of go back to asking
them. And again, taught in this book.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
A concept that's taught in here of doing exactly what you just said, of getting away from that. Actually, in this chapter that we're talking about, let me see, it's on page 52 here. It says the New York Telephone Company made a detailed study of telephone conversations to find out which word is the most frequently used. And you've guessed it is the personal pronoun I. The word I was used 3,900 times in 500 phone conversations.
Wow. And a lot of times I think that goes back to we're the most comfortable talking about ourselves.
Oh, yeah. Well, it should be the subject we know the most about, right?
I had a conversation this Halloween night. I went to pick up my daughter from some friends who they took my daughter trick-or-treating with their daughter around their neighborhood. And there was a nice lady there that who had lived in the Sparta area. And so I asked her, a little background. She was from Jamaica, then moved to New York, then to Atlanta, then Sparta. I'm like, how did you end up in Sparta? And it was about tech. And then asked more questions. She's into homesteading and horses. And I was like, so how did you get started in that? And it was a God-given vision and it was a purpose. And I was scared to say it and just kept asking questions. This lady, Casey, actually stopped in the middle of the conversation and said, I'm not used to somebody asking me questions. Usually I'm the one doing all the asking. And it was just kind of a reminder of this book, is what I thought when she said it. And I was like, well, I'll be honest with you, ma'am, I'm more comfortable when I'm asking questions than when I'm being asked. And I really wished I could have said her name. Her name was a little different. Wasn't a name that's common. It wasn't like an Elijah or a Casey. It was different. And I wanted to call her by name because, again, we're learning these principles. But I didn't want to, I know their name's important if I said it wrong. So, but I said, ma'am, I'm actually more comfortable asking than being asked. So I think you're doing great. Then I carried on asking more questions, right? You've been with me a while back. We were in Texas and we were with Michelle, our favorite CPA. And I said, man, blotched that up, Casey. I said, I talked about myself the whole time. I said, I've got to learn how to do better about asking questions and not talking about myself. That evening, we went out to eat with Michelle. And when we got done, you were so kind. You came and said to me, you said, you did a lot better job there. If that's what you're wanting to do, you asked a lot more questions. And so I think we got to become very mindful of it. It's got to become almost a habit and a practice.
It has to be intentional.
You got to really be, and truthfully, I don't know how you feel about this, but I feel more comfortable when I'm asking questions than when I'm doing all the talking.
It's a 50-50 for me, I have to say, because like this book says, I like to talk about me. There's a, Toby Keith song says, we talk about you. Usually I don't talk about me.
Yes.
But that's not the way.
Honest, man. That's really cool that you can.
Yeah, it 100%
that's authentic,
is.
right?
Yeah, it is. So it is it's a conscious effort, to go around that and do that. And again, most of the time, if you know somebody in your life that genuinely asks you questions a lot, and the more you reflect on your relationship, it's like, man, they really ask me a lot of questions. They really take a genuine interest in me. I would venture to guess that probably was a learned thing. I don't know that comes very natural to very many people, but to answer your question, yeah, I'd like to talk about me, but at the same time, I know that that's not necessarily the right or most proper thing to do. Yeah. And again, that comes from having to be conscious of it.
And I think that, again, as the word educated got said a time or two, we do begin to learn what's proper in life and what isn't. And so beating our own drum all the time, and real estate attracts that more than anything.
Yes.
It's that can become something that you can get caught up in too much, talking about how big I am or how many deals I did or how big my house is, and nobody really cares.
Yeah.
If you're trying to really build a relationship with somebody, you should be asking them about their family, about their home. I've got a good friend, John Semino. I've always felt like he cares because he's always asking questions. He leads in with those questions. Michael Maynard. I can think of a handful that's Lucas McCoy. We both know Lucas. They just kind of lead in with that naturally. Yep. And it makes you feel so good. How's your daughter? And it just warms you up. And then I got to remember, hey, I need to ask them too.
Right. And I think for me, that's probably, when you're asking about that, it's probably because I'm not usually the first to the punch when it comes to ask those questions, just out of personality, and then again, still learning and trying to get better myself. So usually I get hit with that question first, which then gets
you going
to talking here.
Yes.
And the same thing, like you said, it's once you kind of start moving, it's like, oh man, like
natural.
You start thinking about it afterwards. You're like, man, I didn't ask them anything.
Yeah.
They probably thought I didn't care about them. So there's one of the Avengers movies. I can't remember which one it was. I think it's the first one. The character in it, Tony Stark, who's Iron Man, who's played by Robert Downey Jr. There's a scene in it where they're trying to figure out where Loki was going to go to devise his plan or build this machine, to get his army moving. And he said, no, this is not a guy who hides in a cave and works in the dark. This is somebody who wants a building taller than the rest of them with his name on it. And then he stops and realizes that I also have a building in New York City that's taller than the rest of them with my name on it. And he's at my building making a scene,
Yeah.
So it's kind of a funny little scene when you see it in there, but in reading through this book and the concepts that we learned and reflecting on that one piece of that movie is in him trying to point a finger saying, this is a guy that wants his name on the biggest building, that wants people to look at him, that has that big ego. He wants people to say, oh, look at that mighty man sitting up there. Realize that that's also me. I have that. Yeah. So, it's a small moment of self-reflection there, and it carries out through the rest of the movies. But yeah, again, I know more about me than anybody else does. So,
and I would say our in kind of conclusion to this for Casey and I, one thing we'd probably really want to encourage the listening audience to do this week is to just pay attention. You know, God give us 2 ears, 1 mouth. We should listen twice as much as we speak. And again, that may be easier for some than others, but at the end of the day, find somebody this week, a family member, a son, a daughter, a mom, a dad, a husband, a wife, and begin to become genuinely interested in them. Ask them questions and ask them about their day, how things are going. When you take time to do this, they're going to feel valued and cared for. In sales, it's no secret, right? Like we need to build rapport. And in doing so, we need to be getting them to open up and share with us. So this is a principle that works when you work it. And it's the opposite sometimes of what the world teaches us. So just apply it, see how it works. If you don't know, if you know because you tried it, and if you don't know, try it. Don't take my word for it. Don't take this book's word for it. Go out there and try it yourself. See if you can get those results. We appreciate you. Thank you very much. Have a great week.